being here. It's my honor and privilege to introduce to you Father Fikiri Deogratias. And the topic, as you know, is Ubuntu philosophy and ethics. We are all siblings from Mother Earth. So prior to coming to the United States from the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Father Fikiri worked with university students in the Congo, Kinshasa, and in Kenya, Nairobi, where he describes his work as having been about restoring the dignity of nature and the environment. His background studies have been in education, teaching, and philosophy. And Father Fikiri also did research on the environmental degradation of that's forcing our youth to migrate away from their homes, being forced to leave so that they can financially survive. He obtained his licentiate, which it's a certificate that we are not too familiar with here. It comes after a bachelor's degree and before a master's degree. His was in sacred theology, and then he went on to earn his master's degree in social ethics and environmental justice at the Jesuit School of Theology in Santa Clara / Berkeley, the Graduate Theological Union. And he's currently a PhD student at Marquette University in Milwaukee, Minnesota, in the School of Education with a concentration on leadership and policy. And we need and are grateful for leaders like you are and will continue to be as we all face this changing climate and changing world. So welcome, Father. Deogratias.
Thank you very much. I'm really glad to be here. When I was here at Jesuit School of Theology of Berkeley, I used to work with Sally and the team, and I'm grateful for the invitation and your donations. Well, today I'm going really to bring you to another reality. This is mostly the reality of sub-Saharan African countries and what is going on there in terms of climate change, environmental degradation, that people really don't speak about it when it comes to migration, when it comes to poverty. Where does it come from? What are the root causes of these crises? So I'm going to speak mostly about Ubuntu, which is an African way of life. And it simply means that we are all interconnected. We are all interdependent, whether it is with human being or with other creature. And the way the day we cease to be interdependence, this will be our end. And I think somehow it is really happening. Before I start, I would like just to take maybe a minute and remember those people that we know who have been affected by climate, by environment, from very near or from far. To pause just for a while, and if you can express it into the chat or speak loudly about those environmental degradation, human and non-human lives at risk.
Do you want us just to?
Yes, you can just say something, or if that's in the chat, that would be fine as well.
Okay, I'll do that.
Yes, please.
Is this the question that we're answering?
Yes, this is a question. If you have any response to it, or if you want to share your recent, yes,
Yeah.
please share it.
Yeah, sure. My son's fiance's parents had their house burned to the ground in the wildfire in Colorado a year and a half ago. Clearly climate change related. It was in December around Christmas time. They had absolutely no rain up until that time. And it was traumatic, to say the least.
Thank you for sharing that. Any other thought? Yes, sorry.
Well, mine gets flooded with examples. I also lost my home in a fire, but that was now 30 years ago, but it's still a part of the pattern that we are experiencing. But I think of people in the island nations in the world whose homes are going to be submerged. I think about the typhoons. We'll be hearing about that from AG later. And I know that AG personally, his personal story of devastation is just hangs in my heart. So.
Thank you. Yes, please.
I think about my daughter and all of her generation and younger who has had to evacuate 4 times from fire in the last 3 years, moving from one place to another, and is forced to live back home with us again because it's been so devastating for her.
Sorry for that. Yeah, thank you for sharing. Yes, please.
My family's ranch is very much affected by the drought and the cattle.
I forgot one I have to say. My niece is from Paradise. We all know that the whole town of Paradise burned, and of course she lost her home.
Thank you. Thank you for your sharing and experiences. Well, although I'm going to speak about sub-Saharan Africa, the experience I have is most recently when I was traveling here from Milwaukee to Berkeley. I had a friend who is in Canada, and she shared with me that her mother just passed away because of the air quality and the heat. She could not survive it, and she was living alone, so she didn't have any help. So if you review your entries, those you shared and those you didn't share, you have at least an idea of how extensive the effect of environmental and climate crisis can be. The climate crisis impacts not just persons and objects in proximity or lying on the path of the disaster, but also far and wide that we can reach. In one of the problems that we are facing in Africa is the extension of desertification because of fossil fuel on the climate change effect. And we have experienced people living in camps, refugee camps, because they can no longer live in their villages. And most of them, especially young people, they're trying to do something, kind of planting trees that can push on the desertification. But again, some of them feel hopeless. And when they feel hopeless about it, what becomes, of course, is migration. And it is funny when you hear news about migration, the crisis that is happening in the Mediterranean Sea. People not talk about the effect of climate change, they not talk about desertification, they talk about tribal wars. But according to the UN, here is the number of people who have been mostly affected by climate change in Africa. So according to the UNHCR report of 2018, an estimated the number of 2,275 people died or went missing in their effort to cross the Mediterranean Sea. though around 1,335 were estimated dead. 123,000 migrants reached Europe. And in the report of 2020, the report showed that 1,101 people were dead or missing. And these are really the number of people mostly affected by environmental change and who can no longer sustain. And this is what is mostly bringing hunger, because when people explore the land, or when there is kind of climate change affecting the land, affecting the grasses, of course, nobody will stay, and they have to go where their lives can be improved. So this is kind of the interpretation of what can be hope, what can hope look like. And one of the aspect of this hope is, of course, interdependence, as we find it in the book of Genesis, mostly. We have been interpreting the book of Genesis in our own way that favor exploitation of the land. But some version of the book of Genesis is not really about exploitation. It's about interdependence. Through the creation, God created all of us. And he said, take care of each one of you. And that's why we have not been doing. We have been kind of in the exploitive mind and interpretation that we are affecting the younger generation, because it's really scaring. As I worked in the refugee camps, you could see how young people are fearing for their lives, and they're saying, okay, there is no more life here. So there exists a deep interconnectedness between human being and the creation through mindful encounters with nature. And this encounter can be through reflection, sacredness of the land, listening, but also prayer, as we are going to show it in the following page when we speak about Ubuntu. So interconnectedness, interdependence is not only about the African concept of Ubuntu, but also it is biblical. The creation, we are all created and put in the same garden. But how do we take care of that garden? Is really tricky. So what are the root causes of environmental and climate crisis in Africa? But I'm going to start with you. What do you think are the root causes of this climate and environmental degradation in your region, or a place where you have been more recently? When it comes to root causes, what do you think those causes are? Anyone who want to share? Yes, please.
Yeah, broken relationships.
Yes, broken relationship with each other and with creation. Thank you for that. Yes. Yes, please.
Technologically successful.
Technologically successful. The technological paradigm, please.
Living in a system that cares more about profit than life.
Thank you. Profit over lives. Good say. And what else? Yes.
Greed. I have greed.
Greed. Thank you very much. Yes. So what we've said is really real, but I'm going to give just an overview of what can be the root causes of climate crisis and environmental degradation in Africa. Of course, I will speak about how we missed in the care of ecology, mismanagement, but also, as you know, and as the previous speaker spoke about colonialism, right now it's about neocolonialism and capitalism going on, the exploitive mindset, but also the gender inequality. Most of the people affected by climate change, most of the refugee camp in Africa, they are women and children. who are really being exploited. So let me just take some of these facts. So about colonialism, as we all know, during the colonial era, the destruction of the environment and its consequences on the lives of indigenous started because of the exploitation of the land, which created a kind of microclimate crisis that impacted the people and still impacting people. Another effect that I want to highlight from my own experience is capitalism and neoliberalism. This is a picture from Congo. You can see this is the mining. That's how the land looks like after mining. So the land that could be exploitive, that people could grow food, after exploitation, it looks like this. So it's done and nothing can grow on the land. But apart from this, you see how corporations, most of the time, they are using people. You see these people carrying kilos of minerals, and they are not being paid a kind of due wage for living. And in Congo, which is one of the most, people say the most richest country in terms of minerals, you will see that most of the people who are working in these minerals mines, they are women and children who cannot work. And of course, the government has no power to control the area. So what is being done right now is that corporations, they do their best to create a kind of chaos in the region so that the government does not know what is happening, and they will not pay any tax. And when they finish to exploit the land, they leave. Nobody will really follow them. So according to an article, this picture was taken last week, and this is what VOA is saying. It's saying that mining cobalt and copper in the Democratic Republic of Congo, known as DRC, has led to human rights abuses. London-based Amnesty International and a right group based in DRC Congo released a report on the issue on September 11. It said that mining company forcibly removed people from their homes and their farmland. And the recent report also said that people were attacked, including sexually attacked and abused, and their home destroyed or damaged because they need to exploit the mineral that is in the land. So this crisis, of course, can look like paralyzed. We say, where can we find hope and help? So one of the aspects, or that one of the area where we can find hope is, of course, what we call Ubuntu ethics, or Ubuntu philosophy, or Ubuntu way of life. And what does it mean? It means really, it is found in this sentence which says, I am because we are. And if we don't find this interconnectedness mindset, we cannot live. I am because we are. So we live with a community, not only a community of human beings, but a community of people who feel interconnected. So Ubuntu ethics originated from African languages and are summarized in the saying, I am because we are. And since you are, therefore I am. It explains that the individual can only become conscious of his living by participating in and improving the lives of other creatures. Ubuntu emphasizes interconnectedness, relationality, and interdependence between human being and creation. The ecological and the migration crisis facing the sub-Saharan African world cannot be envisioned or cannot be responded to individually. Instead, they should be responded to globally with this mindset of interconnectedness, interdependence, solidarity with other creation. So Ubuntu ethics view and cultural portray the interconnectedness, interdependence, and anthropological worldview that we want to explore. There's one writer called Benezet Bujo who puts this well when he said that the cosmic community itself, including all beings, not just animal, is the essential foundation of African ecological ethics. Total realization of the self is impossible without peaceful coexistence with minerals, with plants, with animals, and all the other creation. So human being, we should accept, of course, that we are interdependence. We live in the community of humans, but also non-human. And this is one of the ethics of Ubuntu and how it is portrayed. So Ubuntu believes that without the intervention of other creatures, human being and non-human being, human being cannot exist. This communal relationship can be a global partnership on the issue of climate justice somewhere else. However, there is one challenge for this ethics or for these ways of life. The challenge is that it is no longer lived. So people mostly, they have been caught up with this capitalistic mentality where also they have to explore, they are looking forward to explore the land and make profit. But these people are mostly the corporation. I'm not accusing international corporation, but also African and Congolese corporation. And what is happening is that when they explore the land, the most people affected are the poor, the indigenous people who really have nowhere to go and who live, who depend on the nature in living. So my argument is that if we really restore this kind of Ubuntu ethics where we see life as interconnection with all other creatures, that can help us to respond to climate crisis and environmental degradation. So I'm going to speak about three cultural heritage of Ubuntu and how it was lived, and it is still lived in some of the part of Africa, especially the rural part. The three cultural aspects is what we call the burying of the placenta or umbilical cord in the earth. The wisdom of the people was that any birth, any child, when there is a newborn in the family, the placenta should be buried with a tree in the land. And the ethic behind it is that as the tree grows, the child also grows. They are meant to take care of one another. So the child takes care of the tree. And of course, in one way or another, the tree takes care of the children. That's the effect. And from this perspective, it was believed that no one can go far from where his umbilical cord is buried, because you feel you are interconnected to your land, you feel you are interconnected to the tree, that you don't need to go far away and leave your own land. So this is one of the ethics or one of the cultural heritage when it comes to the placenta or umbilical cord. Leonard Tumini, who is a writer, says that the placenta and umbilical cord burial serves as a covenant between the newborn child and the ancestral land. and infuse in the child that the African attitude to land and nature is one of ecological concern and preservation. As the earth contains one's part of the body, it should be cared for as we care for our mothers who gave us birth. And when the tree is buried with the umbilical cord, it implies that as the tree grows, the child also will grow safely. And at the end of the life, what happens when you bury a family member, you make sure you plant a tree to the grave. And the ancestral knowledge, wisdom was, okay, this tree can serve as communicating between the living and the dead, because this is, again, interconnectedness, as I've just said. So this one knowledge about the burying of the placenta. Among the Kikuyu from Kenya and many other tribal group of Africa, the umbilical cord is usually buried in an cultivated field along with a tree covered with grain and grass as a symbol of fertility. There is a silent prayer that the mother's womb should remain more fertile and fresher for other generations to come. The second one is what we call totem. Totem. What is totem in the African way? This is a question that some will help us to answer, those who feel comfortable. Totem is this kind of partnership, relationship with other creature. So each tribe in Africa, and most of the African context, have what they call totem, an animal or a tree that they share or that they cherish. And that animal cannot be killed, that tree cannot be cut, because you are kind of violating the partnership between your tribe and the particular animal. So I don't know if for your own, if you would like to share, it's really maybe kind of visionary, if you were asked to choose a species or a tree to protect and partner with, what should that be? In your own context, if you are asked, okay, what kind of species you want to partner with, which could that be? Yes, Sherry?
An oak tree.
Yes.
I grew up in the Napa Valley, lots of oaks, and I have to partner with my dog, Cosita.
Thank you very much. The dog and oak tree. Yes. Someone is sharing because he feels kind of connected, or he likes a particular animal, a particular tree that he really feels he could preserve in this time of catastrophe and crisis.
Redwood tree.
Yeah.
Redwood tree. Thank you very much. What else? Yes, please.
Giraffe.
Giraffe. Oh, I like giraffe. Giraffe. Thank you.
I think of our mascots, like the high school has the Yellow Jackets or the Bears and the children.
Okay, mascots. Thank you very much.
Dolphin, pelican.
Dolphin, pelican. Thank you. What else online? Is there anyone?
Birds.
Birds, yes.
Hummingbird. Hummingbird, she said.
Thank you. So this is one of another traditional wisdom that we had in Africa about this partnership with a tree or an animal. My own tribal totem is leopard. Mostly when, for example, the king is being sworn in, he'll make sure he have a symbol of a leopard. And what does it mean? It means that we cannot, people from my tribe cannot kill a leopard. And it is believed that the leopard cannot kill someone from my tribe. It is believed. But according to some studies, it is said that animals attack you when they feel threatened, when they feel fear. That's why they attack. What if we don't strengthen them, or if we don't feel kind of threatening, they will not really attack some of the time. This according to some to some studies. Don't go there and try.
Don't try it at home. Don't try this at home.
Yeah. So one of the ethic that could help to preserve the other species and the other creation. And I'm quite sure if everybody in the world says, okay, this is one of the species that I want to preserve, we couldn't have that loss of biodiversity that we are experiencing all over the world. And we could have contributed a little to the preservation of creation. Another example of this totemic belief is, for example, from the Ashanti people from Ghana. So the story goes like, because we have time, that once upon a time, the Ashanti people were being chased by another tribe, and they were running away. And suddenly they met a very long river. They saw a river on their way. They couldn't go farther away. So as they stopped by the river, it is said that a number of crocodiles came out and laid on the top of the river to form a kind of bridge over the other side. And all the people went on the back of the crocodile till they crossed the river, and those who were chasing them, they could no longer kill them. So the crocodile saved the lives of the tribe. Sometimes when I want to disturb the minds of the priests, I compare it to the Red Sea. So, okay, the Israelite people were saved because of God created a road in the sea, and they could pass, right? And the the Egyptian can no longer push them. So what about this crocodile who really formed a way and say, okay, I'm bringing you to a safer place where you can live and stay. So these are really very important traditional concept ethics that help. So that can help to respond to the environmental crisis. And as some people have said, I feel people like a dog here. They like dogs. So maybe that will be, is that a totem? I don't know. It's I'm just asking, kind of asking. So we have too many cultural, I'm shifting here to a more practical way of doing it and how we are doing it in Africa, especially when I was working in a refugee camp in Kenya and Ethiopia. So one of the response, again, leaving this theoretical part, is youth empowerment. How do we empower youth or toward a kind of sustainable action? If you read Ezekiel 33, verse 3 to 6, you will see this kind of vision that Ezekiel is having, that the land should be restored. The relationship between the land, the relationship with the creature can be restored. And I believe that if we really need to find a solution to this climate crisis, we should more and more empower young people, as they are mostly the one who will deal with climate change. It is not changing very soon, but change can come if we include young people in whatever we are doing, or we empower them in a way of taking action. And there are three kinds of empowerment that I see that we can do as a community of faith, of believers. One of them, of course, is education, as we participate in the education of our children or of our grandchildren. How do we advocate for this kind of cultural or this kind of land preservation? Another one is, of course, cultural formation. as we live with young people, how do we empower them, culturally speaking, about the land, about climate change, and provide a kind of solution. And another one, of course, is pastoral activities. The people always ask me when I talk about this climate crisis, they ask me, how much do you preach about creation, about climate crisis? And can I remember the last time I spoke and I preached about climate crisis? Sometimes people don't talk about it. Don't pack it really in the church. I don't know if it's kind of, they don't feel it is talking about it. That's one Tarita was speaking about it. But I do believe that if we really emphasize, especially when it comes to young people on this three kind of background, in education, cultural formation, the ministerial pastoral activities that can make a change. So this is the saying of Ezekiel. Ezekiel gives us a wonderful vision of a restored relationship between humanity and the rest of creation. Will that restored relationship be truly restored? I don't know. But maybe you have a response to that. And we can still hope, of course, that one day this ritual or restoration, that's relationship between human being, between nature and other creation can be restored. Most of the time, we don't see this relationship, this break of relationship ever seen. Right? Sometimes don't see it, but what is seen is kind of breaking the relationship with the Creator. And as we explore the land, of course, we break that relationship, that strong relationship with our Creator and with one another. What else can be done? Another aspect, of course, is the image is not clear, but is planting trees. Maybe each one can at least have the possibility to plant a tree. And we have discovered, for example, when it comes to some of the northern part of Africa where there is expansion of desertification, we've discovered a kind of trees that when you plant them, it kind of refrain the expansion of desertification. And this really group of young people, they're really working hard on that because they feel, okay, this is our future. Planting the trees, but of course, sometimes takes time. But this kind of igniting or building hope in people's future and empowering. So empowerment aims at motivating youth to act and become decision makers within their community and at a personal level. So those potential and talent that we find in young people need to be recognized. I always like the saying that young people, they are not the future. Young people are the present. So they need to be included in the present. I'm saying, okay, no, you should be empowered in the future, or you have to look for the future actions. No, the young people are very in the present. And the call of action can enforce that self-empowerment, whether it is popular education that we do in our own way, not only formal education, but also self-reliance and confidence, putting confidence in young people. So taking care of the environment by performing daily eco-friendly action seems to be a response to the climate change. Definitely. Action such as planting trees, agricultural adaptation. We are all somehow affected by this drought coming, and the land is not growing something, many things at least. But how do we adapt to it, or how do we restore that everybody, poor and rich, have access to the minimum they can? to live. Prevention of desertification, that's what I've just said, and caring for the rivers, the stream, and lakes. Ecological action can be learned in school through formal and informal education. Well, I don't know if you have another action that you think really can be done in school or culturally speaking before I continue, so that I may not monopolize the word. So any other action do you think of really in a contextual way? I'm speaking mostly from African context that I speak to you, but in the US, I think you still have actions that really needs to be implemented or done. What do you think about? Yes, Gordon, thank you for coming.
Of course, good to see you. Rethink how we think of cultivation in terms of land spaces and make sure that we do it in a way that's actually conducive to the flourishing of the environment we find ourselves in.
Thank you very much for that.
Of course.
Yes. Any other thought coming? Yes, please.
Actually, taking children out into nature so that they get a real understanding of their interconnection with nature.
Thank you. Yes, that's really, people have given experience that it is very powerful because most of the people are not into contact with nature, but bringing people there and feel how much they are interconnected with nature can make a difference. Yes.
I've joined climate marches.
Join climate marches, definitely. Yeah, we need to do it. Sherry would like
Bring your kids.
Join it. Yeah, we need to do it really, yes.
Worship in the wild.
Worship
Wild
in the
church.
wild. Why not? We don't do it most of the time. So we are comfortable in our building and we cannot go out. Why can't we go out and speak about nature and about how it can inspire us in our worships? Yes, please.
Investing in local institutions that train future leaders to develop with land responsibly.
Thank you. Investing in local institutions, and I think really that's also powerful, especially college or young people who are studying. How do we make sure that they are well equipped to respond to the challenge? Definitely. Something else? Yes?
Well, I think we have to be like the persistent widow in the Bible and harass our Congress people. I think we have to keep knocking on their door.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes. Knock on the door of people to kind of raise awareness that that's really a big issue.
I was just bouncing off the worshiping outdoors idea. Like, I was thinking of the way that the Ethiopian Orthodox Church will worship outside in more of a synagogue, like original synagogue formation. And like Urban Ottoman, Northwest Berkeley does something analogous with their kibbutz. So it's beautiful to see.
Yes, it's really beautiful to see. Yes, please.
Yeah, to piggyback off of that, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church also plants church forests, so tree forests, which is beautiful. And in Tanzania, for the Lutheran churches, if you become a member of the church, you have to plant so many trees. So I think even just tree planting, like you had mentioned, but also having houses of worship, be leaders in that would be really revolutionary in the United States and abroad.
Yes, exactly. That would be really revolutionary. Yes, please.
Somebody online said, start good trouble.
Start good trouble. That's wonderful. Something else, yes? Vicky?
Perhaps we should have everyone who lives within a city be responsible for planting a tree.
Yes, definitely. And I think we still have real space. In our own home, we have enough space to plant a tree and to preserve for that kind of
Well, I just cannot resist teasing to my talk, which is going to come next.
Okay.
I think it's not, maybe it's true. But anyway, it's important what kind of tree we plant.
Yes.
And it should be a native tree, native to your county. And so I just want to make people aware of that. They might not be at my talk. Super important.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Yes. please.
I was just gonna piggyback off this planting in the city, or planting trees in the city idea, and say, well, maybe rethink how we build city infrastructure such that planting trees is a possibility in more green space, because often it's prevented by plumbing or electricity or whatever, or gas lines, whatever's running under the ground in space. So
Yes, planting trees and indigenous trees are very, very important, yes, as we look forward. And I think this will still, as I speak from the indigenous background, I will come back to it later, but it's not only indigenous spirituality of cultural ways of doing from Africa, but also here in the US. I have taken some courses on indigenous spirituality, and I've seen immense knowledge and wisdom in caring for the nature, that if we implement them, that really can help us to really make a difference in whatever we are doing, restoring creation, restoring, kind of responding to climate change. One example I was sharing with Sally, I always, sometimes my university and all other universities, before a ceremony, they will always say, okay, land acknowledgement. Right. We all want that, land acknowledgement, that we stand on the land of this tribe. But then after, what does come after? If we just say, okay, we are doing land acknowledgement, and that's all, does not make any difference. We should go further in kind of saying, okay, which kind of action as the university, as an institution, can we take to really acknowledge the wisdom of people, and even maybe think of a kind of reparation that can come with it in restoring that relationship that indigenous people used to restore. Yes, please.
I think it's kind of related. And there's a question that says, in Africa, can the belief in spirits be used to help combat climate change?
Yes, that one will come later. This is a question that I will ask later on in terms of ecumenical or interreligious dialogue. I think one of, yes, Gordon will speak, one of the fact that is coming is, I feel all the religious background, all the congregation, at least we are becoming more in the way of this recreation, that we have violated the right of creation, that we didn't live accordingly to the God vision of creation. And even those people who don't believe, I think some of them are convinced that there's something wrong going on. Yeah. So can that be used to really come together in an ecumenical or interreligious dialogue, saying, okay, we agree that we didn't interpret things very well, we didn't do things that they're supposed to do, and we accept that we were wrong. Can we do a backup and going? Does Gordon, you want to say something, share something?
Oh yeah, just real quick, off piggybacking off your comment.
Yeah.
Always piggybacking. There's if you want to make monetary reparations to the Chochenyo speaking Maloney peoples in this area, there's this Agreate land trust. And you can do the Shuni land tax, which Shuni is like a loan for gift. And so that's a form of monetary reparations that folks, our colonizers living in the space, can make to the Ohlone folks.
Yes, and they've actually gotten land.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, so they're starting to actually get land back. So it's very cool.
Yes, that's really very good news to hear. And yes, another thing I want to go back to is what Graffe, right, said about cultural curriculum formation, of course. And I think some universities are doing very well, but others are not doing very well. It's my kind of fear that these corporations, those people exploiting the land, will not go back. They will continue making profit. Definitely. You see, we have been on more than 20 summits about the environmental crisis, more than 20, and the coming one just near. And there is no kind of agreement on what should be done. whether it is about ecological depths or about whatever they speak about, there is no agreement on that issue, that how we should restore the climate justice and creation. So I do think that maybe with ingenious professors, we should find a way of bringing in new curriculum that counter the narratives that we've been using. How do we invest in a more sustainable way, greenly way in whatever to do? So this is what I've spoken about. And what's coming in is now system change. Yeah, so
Yeah.
we need a system, a change of system. Yes, but don't ask me why, how. I don't really have, I don't have any response on how, but I feel until we change the system, we will not really make a lot of change. And this system, of course, for my own understanding, should be mostly regional. What I've been saying there, we are all affected by climate change in one way or another. And it is sad that those who are making more profit, they are not much affected than those who are poor in the region. The ones who are really affected are the poor, who are living our neighbors. And my assumption is, well, we maybe will be affected differently, but if things doesn't change, all of us will be affected.
Yeah.
So it depends on how near you are, but nobody will be spared. Don't until maybe you find a way of going to live to another planet.
Let them go.
And I don't think it will happen. So system change is very important, and that's why maybe we need to advocate, of course, restorative justice. What we've been speaking about, liberative education. How do we liberate people from this oppressive, exploitive background or mindset and explore a more just society? This is Bishop Paul Venya. I would like to read one of his quote when he's from South Africa. And he says that human liberation and empowerment of youth through education is being one of the many possible solutions to the climate and environmental crisis that we are facing rightly now. But we can change the system if we prepare people, especially young people, to change that system. Curriculum formation, this is one of the aspects, the desert of in the northern part of Africa. And I've said about it was cultural belief, but also the trees that we plant that can help to restore or respond to the climate crisis that we are experiencing. Pastoral, ministerial response. One of the powerful response I have seen is a call to a deep ecological conversion that we all need. Mostly, you'll find it in the book of Pope Francis, Laudato Si. So having a new look on creation and see how God dwells in every creation, because He's the only one who created it. How does He? How can we see His presence the way God sees creation? Another fact is nature as a sacrament. Most of the time, we don't see creation as sacred, right? It's not really sacred. It's not in our habit seeing creation as sacred. But the liturgical context, if we really implement it, maybe can help us to see how God is in each creature and how the creature is also sacred because created by God. We don't own anything. The third perspective on pastoral and ministerial response is about biblical hermeneutics. Most of the time, we use the creation narratives of Genesis. And most of the time, people have been interpreting it in a more exploiting the earth. You subdue the earth than restoring a kind of relationship. But what about the book of Job? People don't use it, but Job has another count of creation, another narrative of creation that is definitely different from Genesis. And the narrative creation of Job is kind of, well, before. So the human creation in itself is sufficient, does not need any human presence or any human action to be restored. So people don't use most of the Isaiah and Job narrative of creation. And this is really a different view from the Genesis creation. Indigenous spirituality around the word. This is another response. We have just talked about it. I like this quote, and I'm going to read it from Jack Forbes, who says, Indigenous Americans, spirituality and echo he says, for us truly, there are no surroundings. I can lose my hand and still live. I can lose my legs and still live. I can lose my eyes and still live. But if I lose the air, I die. If I lose the sun, I die. If I lose the earth, I die. If I lose the water, I die. If I lose the plant and animals, I die. All of these things are more part of me and more essential to every breath than is so called my body. And this, I think, this a lot of wisdom in this saying. We really cannot live if we don't see nature, if we don't see the world, the earth as interconnected, all of us, in the same way that as we live, as we make progress, we are all interconnected. And we all depend on creation than on other human being. If there is no earth, no air, no water, well, I don't think any one of us will live for the next 45 hours or 30 hours. It is really most direct. Well, for my conclusion, this is a question for you, as I said, many denominational church and non-denominational more and more are believing in creation, that we need to take care of creation, we need to take care of other creature. Even the people who don't believe in anything, at least they believe in that there's something, creation, that we really somehow depend on creation, that things are going badly. They recognize it and they come for us. So my question, not to Sally who organized the conference, but is this can be a kind of a way of coming together in a most interreligious dialogue, ecumenical dialogue, but also cultural dialogue. Do you feel this really can be another way of bringing us together and leave our division, divide word, and as people inhabiting the earth and experiencing the same catastrophes, can creation, the new view of creation, bring us together? I'd like to hear your thought, and that will be my last point, and then we'll take some questions if there are questions. Yes, please.
Well, I resonate to so many of the things that you've said, I'm guessing others too. At the same time, we live in a set of systems that do not embody those principles.
Yeah.
For example, just one example, in California, we have a system of water rights that is based on the notion that jurisdictions own water. Private persons own water. It's a commodity rather than something that we all treasure and that sustains us all. So maybe this is where you were going with it, that don't we fundamentally have to change the systems that undergird this culture, the world culture as we operate now, so that these principles can start to live? We can all agree about those principles, but how do we actually embody them?
Yes, that's a very good question. Yes.
Well, I would just like to share that I recently read a book called Donut Economics. And
I'm sorry, called what?
Donut
Donut?
Economics.
Donut.
Well, it's a pictorial representation of what we need to achieve economically. And the idea is that you need to operate in this space, which has the shape of a flat donut, if you will. And you want to stay out of the inside space, the donut hole. If you are operating in the inside space, then you are, sorry. If you're operating in the inside of the donut hole, then you are not meeting people's basic needs, everyone's basic needs. If you start operating outside the, external to the donut, then you are operating in a space which exceeds the capacity of the earth to sustain us. So you need to operate in this particular space. Human dignity is retained, but within the carrying capacity of the earth. And I found that book to be extremely helpful and hopeful. Gets a little utopian at times, but quite wonderful concepts, and I do recommend it.
Repeat the name of it.
Donut Economics.
Donut Economics.
Spelled DOUGHNUT, Economics.
Thank you for the response, yes. Any other thoughts about Gordon? Yes.
Well, I was just thinking about what Art was saying about them making private property out of water. I was just thinking about what Art was saying about making private property out of water, and maybe one decision we could make is define property as theft when it comes to the necessities of life.
That's a very good one. Yeah, thank you.
Right, no private property. You can live in your house, of course, but we're talking about, the world that sustains us, and how will we sustain the world we live in.
Yes. Thank you.
Eliminate private property.
That's what they do in Sweden.
Yeah, I think that's really been one of the crises, that what God created for all of us, some people just take it and put it private. So we are the only owner, and we can do whatever we want with it, while other people are suffering. And this was something that was made available to each one of us. When speaks about water, when we speak about air, when we speak about this wisdom from the indigenous people, these are gifts from God that we are supposed all to enjoy, but we are not enjoying it. Some people have made it private, so profit over lives of people. Yes, so let me come to my question. Ecumenical interreligious dialogue and cultural dialogue. Can earth, can creation be that kind of coming together and not really emphasize on our creeds? In the history of the church, how Christians divided us. can the new view of creation help us to come together and speak one language and say, okay, we have made a mistake and we need to come back? Yes, please.
Well, I have a question for you.
Oh, okay.
I lived in West Africa for a year where I feel like in the United States, it's like, are you religious or are you not is the question. But in West Africa, I feel like it's like, what do you believe in? So there's already this interreligious cultural exchange happening. And I'm curious, from you being from Africa and the DRC, do you see that there as well? And is that why you have this hopeful question that, yes, we can do that?
Yes, I do think, because one of my take in this is whatever religion you are from, we definitely in Africa sometimes feel that kind of interconnectedness with the nature, despite our belief. And of course, from the Ubuntu perspective, if we really become more and more divided, we cannot live in Africa, because the structure of the society is just different from what we have here. So yes, I think it's really definitely different from what I see in the US. But again, it comes from the change of the system. How do we agree or accept that this system needs to be fixed, and who is to fix it, and why? That's another question that we all need to respond to. So definitely, from an African perspective, and that has been going on whether it is Catholic or Presbyterian or Muslim, in what is more and more being called enculturation. How do we bring the traditional knowledge of care of creation and the way of being of African spirituality into our own churches and into our own faith, and make them live together and be connected in one way or another? Yes, please.
I feel like if we can come together around these concepts that you were just putting forth, it doesn't matter whether we follow a religion or not.
Right.
That it's coming around the understanding of what can we do to survive, and that we will accept all religions or non-religions. I mean, Buddhism supposedly isn't a religion, for example. But anyway, my thought on it.
That's right.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Yeah, Tom Ellison, in response to a query that I made at one point, and I said to him, I think you agree with me that we want people of all religions to join us in this fight against the climate catastrophe. And he said, we want, and this is Reverend Dr. Tom Ellison of First Press, and he said, we want people of all religions and no religion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely, yes, Pastor.
Yay,
That's
Tom.
something to say.
I'm curious if you see any particular, we're talking about returning to some of basic principles of indigenous and faith. Do you see any particular experiments in Africa that embody that? And I think we're, in this country, we're just beginning to think about that. I'm curious if you see anything of that sort?
Yes. Yes, definitely. So in Africa, most of the countries in Africa, we are still on kind of navigating in between the capitalistic exploitation and this mindset of exploiting the nature. This is really for corporations people, but more the local, how do you call it, those who are not rich and poor, or who are not really only native, but those who...
Middle class?
Yeah, middle class, yeah, thank you. Middle class, they really think this precept, they matter. That we all are connected, that really taking care of the nature is a matter of survival. And if we don't do it, there is no salvation for all of us, whether here on earth and of course in heaven. And then if you read again what I've said there, the Laudato Si Pope Francis, but that's what he's also saying, that we will be saved as creation, not only as individual who lived his own life according to his own understanding. It's about the earth and about the global or the interconnectedness salvation and not personal belief or connections. Any other question?
Comments?
Comments, yes.
So thank you.
Thank you for having me and listening to me. Thank you. I'm really grateful for that. So the book is here. Maybe you can show it to those who are online. The book Sherry was talking about.
Oh,
Yes. So.
oh, you brought it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Blessing to be with you.
Thank you so much.